Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Christy McKenzie. I am Assistant Coordinator of Neighborhood Services with the Erie County Department of Senior Services. Welcome to our 2020 Virtual Elder Law Day Summer Series. This summer series will continue to run through the end of September every Wednesday. Please log on to erie.gov/ELD to find more sessions and topics to register for. A few things to mention: this presentation is being recorded, so we're hoping to have it up so you can access it at a later date. Also, please feel free to ask questions during this session using our Q&A panel to the right. Please also remember not to include any personal information in those questions. I would like to take a minute to thank those individuals who have helped make this summer series possible. Our County Executive, Mark Polenkars, Karen Nicholson, the CEO for the Center for Elder Law and Justice, our Senior Services Commissioner, David Shank. I will now introduce our two guest speakers. First, we have Sarah Galvan. She is a senior staff attorney at the Justice and Aging and provides support for the National Center on Law and Elder Rights. Sarah's work focuses primarily on legal services, capacity building, skills-based training, and elder justice issues. And next we have Sarah Duval, who is a supervising attorney at the Center for Elder Law and Justice. She handles cases dealing with elder exploitation and is a frequent presenter on the topic of elder abuse prevention. Welcome, ladies. I'll turn it over to you. Sarah, you can go ahead.
Yeah, I'm trying. I'm having trouble unmuting.
I can hear you.
We can hear you.
Oh, you can't? Oh, sorry.
Okay.
All right, sorry about that. Okay. Anyhow, so good morning, everyone. I'm so happy to be here today, presenting with Sarah. I'm with the Center for Elder Law and Justice, and just so everyone who's attending is aware, if you're watching this recording later, we are a legal services agency. We provide free legal services, generally to individuals over 60. So if you have any questions, please give us a call. We have a free helpline. Our main number is 853-3087. We have offices in Dunkirk and Lockport and our office in Buffalo. Our mission is to improve the quality of life for elderly, disabled, and low-income persons in Western New York through the provision of free civil legal services. And I'm happy to work on our elder abuse prevention unit, where we work with individuals who have experienced forms of elder mistreatment, including falling victim or just have questions about scams.
Hi, everyone. I'm Sarah Galvan. I'm an attorney at Justice and Aging. Justice and Aging is a national organization that uses the power of law to fight senior poverty. We focus on securing access to affordable health care, economic security, and the courts for older adults with limited resources. Our offices are located in Washington, D.C., Oakland, California, and Los Angeles, California. But we do provide training and technical assistance to advocates across the country. We are not a direct services provider, so unlike the Center for Elder Law and Justice, we do not represent individuals. However, we do advocate for policy change and do engage in impact litigation that advances the rights of older adults. So to get us started, I just wanted to give you a roadmap of what we would be talking about today. So you're here to learn about scams, particularly scams that have emerged in the COVID-19 crisis. So to get us started, we're just going to do a little bit of background about scams generally and some of the psychology behind those scams. We're going to move into actually talking through some examples of those scams and then how you can report those on both the local and federal level. And what resources are available so you can continue learning. Let's get started. So we wanted to be here today because we know, unfortunately, that there are a lot of people out there that will use this crisis to exploit individuals, but of all ages. But we'll talk a little bit about how and why scams often are targeted at older adults. So we're hoping today that with this presentation that you'll feel empowered in a couple of ways. One, you'll have the information that you need to be able to recognize a scam if you get a call, if you get an email, if you get a text, but also empowered into learning more. We're with you today for an hour, but we're going to share a lot of other resources that you can use to continue your education. And we'll talk a little bit about how these scams are constantly changing. So what we tell you today will be very helpful now, but you want to continue that education. So really looking forward to spending some time with you. And as Sarah said, we have a Q&A box where you can type in information. We hope that you'll put questions in there, but also if you want to share an experience or an example, we'd love to hear from you. So please feel free to put those in there. But as Christy said, not too much identifying information, but just give us a little bit of detail about what you may have experienced. All right, so let's move into some background. So as I mentioned before, scams impact people of all ages. It's, a lot of the tactics that we're going to talk about that scammers use are tactics that can influence people across the spectrum of age and capacity. So we really want to emphasize here that it's not a matter of older people, being more gullible or trusting necessarily in most cases. It's just that, these scammers are very good at what they do. And some of these factors that we'll talk about today just happen to disproportionately impact older adults. So, many times there's a perception or a reality that older adults have access to resources. This can include things like your pension, Social Security, maybe your retirement savings, things that perhaps might be perceived things that younger people don't necessarily have. There's also availability. We'll talk a little bit about how, scammers actually reach out to people. But, aside from this time in which many people are working from home and staying home, oftentimes older adults are just at home more frequently. And so the scammer's ability to be able to reach you is often a little bit easier if you're at home. And then there's, of course, these other individual factors that you probably hear quite a lot about. People who are sick. Sometimes that affects your ability to kind of access certain parts of your reasoning. A lot of times people who are going through chemotherapy or other very intense medical treatments or taking medication that might influence their decision-making capabilities can make them more susceptible to scams. Cognitive decline, of course, people who might be experiencing some form of dementia might be more likely to be influenced by a scammer. And also isolation. And this is something that, many people are experiencing right now in the pandemic. But sometimes this isolation can come in two different forms. It could be for people who are living alone and don't have anyone else to talk to or don't have sort of that sounding board right within their household. But I'll talk a little bit about the concept of self-imposed isolation. There was a recent study about that came out of the Better Business Bureau scam tracker, in which they talked to a lot of people who had reported scams and people who ended up being victims, meaning that they actually sent money to a scam. A number of them chose not to talk to anybody else about what they were experiencing. And there's a lot of reasons for that, but sort of that decision to not bring in somebody else when you're going through something like this can kind of be a form of self-isolation. Okay, so why is it that these scams work? In thinking about this, a lot of times we can look to some of the tactics that advertising uses. And so I'll go through some of these, and hopefully it's helpful in thinking about if you ever do get one of these calls, maybe help you sort of identify like, oh, they're using that tactic or they're trying to do this, and sort of stop it before it goes too far. So first, visceral rewards. And I use the word rewards sort of loosely because sometimes the reward is not necessarily a good thing, right? So these are things that really sort of grab you in the gut, that are highly motivational sort of aspects of what they might be promising you. And these can come from things like fear. So maybe a scammer is contacting you and saying that if you don't do X, you're going to go to jail or you're going to be sued or something like that. But they also sometimes utilize things like pity, telling you that they have a family member who is sick and they really need money, and, kind of giving you this story that really kind of gets you in the gut and is like highly motivational. And again, these techniques are really trying to get you focused on like peripheral emotional thinking and not necessarily that logical aspect of your brain. An emphasis on urgency. So, trying to make it so that you don't have time to access that rational thought. We see this in advertising and things like, oh, the first 100 people that buy this product get this bonus product, so call right now, those kinds of tactics. These scammers use those too. They might say, if you don't send this by the end of the day, something bad's going to happen. Or if you don't send this by the end of the day, something good isn't going to happen. So that's another sort of tactic that you often see play out in these scams. And as Sarah goes through some of the examples, you'll definitely see some of that. Utilizing a personal touch. Now, this is something that has really emerged as there's more information about individuals online. So if a scammer is looking to target somebody, they might be able to find quite a bit of information about you online that they can use to sort of establish a relationship that seems a little bit more friendly even. Like they might see that you spend a lot of time with your grandchildren, and so they might talk to you about their grandchildren. They may see that you're heavily involved in your church because you're in a church bulletin, and so they might start utilizing some language that touches on that. So that's another thing that they'll often turn to. And demonstrating authority, we really see this come out in scams where they might tell you that they're from the government, they're impersonating some kind of government official. Back when like a lot of these scams were starting, and you still see this pop up from time to time, but sort of the Nigerian prince scam, kind of giving you that sense that they have some kind of authority and they've chosen you in some way to take on some important task. That is another tactic that they usually use in trying to persuade you to keep a conversation going with them at the very least. And, this last one is really relevant to what's going on right now. So all of us are experiencing higher, rates of anxiety. There's a lot of people experiencing depression and are socially isolated because of the pandemic. And again, these scammers are going to take advantage of that. And they see this as an opportunity in which they may even be able to reach people who normally would not respond to some of these persuasive techniques. But because of these other things going on in our external world, could maybe take advantage of more people. So who are the people that are calling you? As I touched on before, sometimes the scammers are overseas, and so and they will use number scramblers. So these are devices that allow them to look like they could be calling from anywhere. So a lot of times it makes sense for them to look like they're calling from, here, a 716 area code, because you might be more likely to pick up the phone for someone who's right here in your community versus someone calling you from another state or another country. So you really can't rely on the number that they're calling from to kind of tell you where someone is actually located. But now, as I mentioned before, with this crisis sort of changing things a little bit, and people maybe looking for other ways to make money in this sort of economic downturn, we expect to see that there's scammers that will be operating actually here. That doesn't make them any less dangerous or any less persuasive, but it's just something to sort of be mindful of, that just someone's location near you doesn't mean that you can trust them and that they're not operating for illicit purposes. And scammers often work from what are termed sucker lists. So these lists for scammers are highly valuable. They contain names and information, sometimes even more than that. You know, as we touched on in the last slide, a lot of personal information can be readily available online. And these lists are people who might respond to a solicitation. This is generated from whether you might have sent money to a scam before, you might have responded to something that they consider that makes you someone who might respond to a scam, such as maybe sending money to a publisher's clearinghouse or something that is kind of on that line. And so once your name and information is on this list, sometimes it can be very difficult to get your name off of those lists. And one of the recommendations is, if you are getting a lot of these calls from scammers, you might even need to change your phone number so that you can avoid getting those calls. You might want to think about things like increasing the filters that filter through your emails so that those things go to junk mail and don't come into your main inbox. But just so you know, this is why a lot of times people who have been victims of scams often continue to get those calls and continue to be victimized. So there can be ways, to kind of limit the number of calls that you get. So we want to do a quick poll with you. If you have been contacted by a scammer, we're curious to know, how did they actually reach out to you? So was it A, by mail, B, by phone, C, by email, D, by social media, or some other means? So you can actually choose more than one. So if you have been contacted in multiple ways, I think Christy's going to launch the poll here so that you can respond to it. And we'll leave it open for about 30 seconds. And if you received a text, please put that in other. I think that would be helpful rather than phone. I know I have received some texts from scams, particularly those that tell me things about my bank account or other things. Christy, are we getting responses yet?
We are.
Okay.
About 10 more seconds, maybe.
Sounds good. All right, should we close this out? Okay. It looks like a number of you are getting contacted by phone and email. So about 18% said mail, 45% said phone, 55% said email, 9% social media. So yeah, that's not entirely surprising. Scammers often like to use the point of contact as phone. It contributes to those sort of elements of surprise and urgency. When you pick up a phone and they can immediately start talking to you, that's a little bit different than when they send you something that you actually have time to sort of review and think about and maybe even show someone else. So there's a number of ways in which scammers can contact you. Sarah's going to talk about that as she goes through some of the examples of what we're seeing with COVID-19. But just to be aware that, there's many access points here, and sometimes that's what makes this so challenging to fight against. So, Sarah, I will turn it over to you.
All right, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Sarah. So I am going to just turn our attention now to what specifically we're seeing. I want to preface this by saying that one of the things I miss most about pre-COVID times is we got to do a lot of presentations in the community. I did a lot of presentations on scams at senior centers, and it helps me be better at my job when I hear from you as to what you're seeing, because really that allows us to spread the word. Because unfortunately, these scammers are always, and although there's a lot of efforts to fight them, and we're going to learn more about that later in the presentation, they're often one step ahead of the game. All right, this is all they do. This is their full-time job, trying to figure out how to take money from from you, from individuals. So if you have experience with any of these scams or there's something we're not talking about, please share it in the Q&A or call our agency. It really helps me be better at this job the more I know about what's going on. So I would say that, COVID, it's certainly so many changes, but one of the biggest changes is there's a lot of economic uncertainty. 1 in 5 Americans is on unemployment. We don't know when reopening is going to happen permanently, when a vaccine is going to happen, and until then, the economic toll has been swift and deep. So while there are specific scams targeting healthcare and economic stimulus payments, which I'm going to talk about, scammers are also using the get-rich-quick scams due to the ongoing economic uncertainty surrounding the COVID-19 crisis. So watch for offers promising quick cash, a check you receive that you just have to deposit, and remember, if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. But like Sarah talked about, when we're already uncertain and you get a call or an email, one email I got recently was promising that if I just clicked on a link that the CARES Act was going to eliminate all of my student debt. And I thought, wow, that would be great, but it's probably too good to be true. But at the same time, there's so much swirling out there about what's happening and who, and it's just, there's a lot of uncertainty, and scammers are preying on that. So I know that this is going to be mentioned before, we mentioned again. If you're ever unsure, please call a friend, call a family member, call us, call one of the resources, and verify that this is, that you think, if you think, oh, this sounds too good to be true, it probably is, but you can always call and verify. You go to the next slide, Sarah. So, healthcare. Scammers know we are all afraid of the unknown to this virus. They're going to manipulate that fear by offering cures or testing that are certainly not FDA approved and have no impact on the virus. There is no cure for COVID. There is no vaccine out there. I did hear this morning that Russia claims to have a vaccine, so I bet you scammers are going to be flooding, people with that promise. Oh, get the Russian vaccine. I wouldn't be surprised if that happens. But there is no cure and there's no vaccine that's been FDA approved. So while we all are doing our best, we're social distancing, wearing masks, that's the extent we can do to stop the spread of COVID right now within our community. It's following the guidelines from the CDC about social distancing, washing your hands, wearing masks. There are test kit offers. One issue is that people want to be tested. They want antibody testing, and so there are fake test kits out there claiming you can do an at-home test. This is, as of the day of this recording, August 12th, not a reality. Things like air filter systems, special masks and all that, these are all scammers trying to take advantage of you. You can go to the next slide. So tips and information. Talk with your healthcare provider with any questions you have about COVID-19. One of the big shifts also has been a lot of more healthcare is done, information is provided over the phone through telemedicine appointments. I don't know about you, but every time I call my doctor, I get a little pre-screen that says if you're calling with a COVID-related question or question about coronavirus, press 1. They know that people will have questions, so call your doctor, our healthcare provider. Testing is still limited, but it's expanding every day. I think we've done a really good job in Erie County. There are testing sites now. There is a longer turnaround. I know that they're working, nationally to get that turnaround shortened, but generally, there's access to testing. There is the home test kit that requires a physician order. So again, scammers, you can't just go buy a test kit. They're not going to send you a test kit. You do have to get a doctor's order for that. And as I said before, there's no vaccine or cure for COVID. It affects people differently, and any treatment should be prescribed by a doctor. And these scammers, people are uncertain. Certain methods of treatment have been suggested, and that there's no proof that they work. But people are so scared of getting this and the impacts of it that they let their guard down, and it makes them more vulnerable to a scam. Can you go to the next slide, please? Okay, government imposter scams. So these are scams we certainly have seen pre-COVID. We're seeing them now more during COVID as well. Social Security, Medicare, and economic impact payments, stimulus checks. This is what I miss about being in a live audience, because I know we have our polls, but if I was in a live audience, I'd ask people to raise their hands and say how many have gotten a call from the Social Security Administration informing you that your benefits will be suspended unless you press 1. I've gotten those calls. I've presented with the U.S. Attorney's Office, and they say they get calls at their office with that scam. But now scammers know that almost everyone in the United States, not everyone, but almost everyone, has received or will receive a $1,200 economic stimulus payment. They also know that there are delays, that certain people have not gotten a stimulus payment. And so I think, even before they started rolling out, there were calls, oh, do you want your stimulus payment now? Just give us your bank account information. We'll deposit it for you. And then you're giving out your bank account to somebody who can then access all of the funds within your bank account. Do not respond to texts or calls from individuals claiming to be the IRS, Social Security Administration, or just someone in the government. They will not text, call, or email you. There are contact tracing. There is contact tracing. That's an important and small exception. Contact tracers from the government may call you, and they may ask for personal information on the phone. But if you ever are questioning for any of these, ask for a number you can call back at, or hang up and look up a number and then call that number back. I would, if you get a call from someone claiming Social Security, hang up and call Social Security yourself. Same with the IRS. They're not going to call you, and they're not going to ask for information over the phone. Visit government websites directly. Don't click on links. This is important for all of those in the polls who say they've gotten scammed via email. It's so easy. A link can appear to be to a website like the Department of Justice or the IRS, but you can click on a hyperlink you think is taking you to the IRS, and the link that appears can be completely different than the website it actually takes you to. So go to the website yourself. Don't click on a link and email. It's incredible how close these scammers can get to having the fake links or websites look like the real link or website. And again, say no to anyone claiming to be from a government agency asking for cash, gift cards, wire transfers, cryptocurrency, or personal and financial information. Don't give this out. Don't give it out over the phone. Say no, hang up. It's very frustrating because I have my phone shows just unknown caller. So if I said unknown caller, I don't answer. But unless I have the information saved as a contact, it shows up as unknown. And so I've gotten in situations where I'm playing phone tag, for example, with my vet's office, right? I was calling, trying to get a hold of the vet's office. I'd see unknown, I wouldn't answer, and then they'd leave a message, and I'd call them back. And that can be, kind of a pain, but at least I will say that if it's an unknown caller, they're generally not going to leave a voicemail, or when they do, I've gotten voicemails from Social Security, pretending to be from Social Security, it takes the immediacy out of it. I'm not on the phone with somebody saying, oh, you have to do this right away. A voicemail, you can take time and look it up and say, is this really Social Security? Well, no. And also, for local calls, if it's important, they're going to leave a voicemail. So you know, don't, as Neil added, it's frustrating, but, you know, if you don't know the caller, don't answer the phone. If it's important, they'll leave a voicemail. You go to the next slide there. Okay, we're going to get into another poll now. Again, your feedback is so important in these presentations, so if you are able to provide it, please do. So the example is stimulus payments. You have been waiting for your stimulus check for months, and you need the funds to cover your prescription costs for the upcoming month. You receive a call from a government representative, and the caller states that there is a new program where large stimulus payments are immediately available. You simply have to provide banking information for the deposit right now. So we're going to do a poll, and we'll say, what persuasive techniques is the caller using? Fear of financial health, promise of a large return, uncertainty about the programs in crisis, or all of the above. So take maybe about 30 seconds to think about it and choose which persuasive technique or techniques you think the caller is using. All right, maybe about 5 more seconds. All right, let's see that poll response. Okay, all of the above was of the individuals who answered, we all selected all of the above. So that is great. That is the correct answer. Everyone gets a gold star. So the caller is using all of these examples. The lessons from the example. Again, if you have questions, contact these agencies directly. They will not solicit information from you over the phone. You have to call them. As I mentioned before, the contact tracers may contact you, but you can always ask for a number to call them back on. Contact tracing is a reality that we have to do to keep people safe and to stop the spread of COVID. But you can always ask for a number to call back on and then call that number back. Important information. Right now, as of August 12, 2020, there's only one stimulus payment. Now, with the uncertainty, I know if you follow the news at all, it's hard not to hear. There's, talks about another stimulus payment or what's going to happen and issues of unemployment, but that's all up in the air. So right now, there's only one stimulus payment, and paper checks are being mailed to individuals who are not otherwise eligible for direct deposit. So if you've not received this payment and you have not filed taxes in the last 2 years, or you're on SSI, our agency has a free helpline, and it's free brief consultations with an attorney. It's staffed by a live person every Monday through Friday from 9 to 11 a.m. But if you call in outside of those hours, or you call during those hours and someone else is on the line, you can leave a voicemail, and an attorney will get back to you within 24 hours. That number, it's toll free, is 1-844-481-0973. 0973. And for the rest of August, it is open to all ages, but beginning in September, we will resume, prior to the crisis, it was for seniors, we're going to resume it to be 55 or older beginning in September. But for the rest of August, it is open to all ages. And just another aspect of this crisis is, because of the economic uncertainty and the economic toll, there are a lot of individuals who are in need. And, it makes you, if you can give, it can make people feel good. It can really, helping somebody in need, if you're able to, can be a really great thing. And there are charities out there, a really helpful website. Though when you're choosing to, if you have the ability to donate and want to donate, you can go to charitynavigator.org, and they have highly rated charities helping to combat the crisis. An informal tip I like to give is that, if you're unsure, try to keep money locally. Local, you'll know it's going to impact your community. Not to say that national charities are also not great and do local work, but I try to keep dollars in the community. Be leery of GoFundMe campaigns. I know we hear in the news, oh, there was a GoFundMe campaign and it's raised X amount of dollars for this person. And again, it can be a very good story. And these, with so much depressing news, it's so nice to hear that the goodness of people. I know I hear it, it warms my cold heart for a minute or two. But just be leery of those campaigns, because while many are legitimate, there are some that are not, and there are people who are taking advantage of other generosity. Tips to avoid charity scams. Never pay by cash, gift card, or money transfer. Again, charitynavigator.org is great. Visit the organization's website directly and check it out for yourself. Just be wary of charities calling you for donations. Again, it's not rude to say, thank you, can you send me something in the mail? Or, I'd like to research this for myself. It's not rude to do that, and people are very afraid of being rude, especially if it's someone calling on a charity. If you have the ability to give, that is great, but then you should feel empowered to choose something that you want to give to, and that would make a difference for you. You can go to the next slide. And then, again, COVID-19 scams, helpers. So Sarah mentioned this before, but there's a lot of social isolation with COVID-19 because older adults are more at risk. There's a lot of fear surrounding even things like grocery shopping, right? And I know stores have had extended hours. Some of those stores are stopping senior-only hours. Some of them are keeping them, but these scammers know this, and they'll say, "Oh, I can help you do grocery shopping. You shouldn't go out and do it," especially if this person, isn't known to you. Okay, you give them, or send them a little money, and then they run off with the money. So if you're an older adult, try to find a trusted friend or neighbor. Or if you order online, you just use a trusted seller. If you're a caregiver, check in by phone or video chat, and make sure you ask questions. I think I've seen older adults who maybe before didn't use like an iPad or FaceTime or anything, that are now learning this technology to keep in touch with family and friends. Is a great way to check in. There are organizations like I know Christina, our host of the Senior Services, and they have incredible resources for caregivers. They have incredible resources at things like Meals on Wheels that allow in-person delivery of meals, and just, that's not only food to the door, but it's also a way to check in on an older adult once a day if you're unable to do that yourself, or how many meals you want a week. So there are other ways to kind of keep connected and combat social isolation so older adults aren't in a place where they may take an offer from someone claiming to be a helper who turns out to just want to take the money and run. I'll turn it over to Sarah for strategies for staying safe.
Great. Thank you, Sarah, for kind of highlighting some of these scams. And I'll say that this is, again, incredibly important to be armed with this information about what you might see. I had mentioned earlier that there was a survey and done related to the Better Business Bureau scam tracker, which we'll show you a little bit later in the presentation. But one thing that they really found is that prior knowledge of these scams matters. And when people are armed with the details of the kinds of scams that they might see, they're 80% less likely to even engage with the scammers and 40% less likely to be a victim. So, again, staying on top of this information and understanding the details of what you might hear are one of the best ways you can really protect yourself from falling victim to one of these scams. So moving forward, some of these tips that we're going to share with you right now are things that Sarah just touched on as she was going through the examples of COVID-19 scams. But and just want to sort of highlight that many of these strategies and tips are about protecting your personal information and being really, really diligent about, not giving that out to anybody. As Sarah sort of touched on in a few of the examples of scams, particularly for those where the scammer might be impersonating a government organization, impersonating a charity, one of the things that I think is most helpful is to say, thank you, I'm going to hang up and call a known number. So if it's someone saying they're from the IRS, then you go and you find the IRS actual number and see if it was the IRS actually contacting you. Similarly, if they're calling you and saying they're from your bank, feel free to tell them I'm hanging up and I'm going to call the known number of my bank that I'm going to get from my bank statement or from my banking website online, because it kind of does make you a little bit nervous when you get one of these calls and you're like, oh, is something really wrong with my account? Do I really owe money? And so this is a way to still verify that something isn't actually going on with your account or with your taxes in a safe way that makes sense. So again, never providing callers with your account numbers, your Medicare number, your Social Security number, your computer login information. We store so much now in our personal devices, so protecting your devices as well is really important. And as Sarah mentioned, those clicking on those links in the emails that you get can be very dangerous, so not clicking on those. And you have a great resource with Center for Elder Law and Justice here in the community who is available to talk to you if you do get one of these messages and you're not quite sure how to get that verified number or whether you really do need to click on that link. So please utilize them and their great helpline. Again, as Sarah mentioned, I think as a society, we try to be kind to each other, especially when we're in the midst of a crisis. We know that, we're trying to band together to get through this. And you want to be polite and friendly, especially when someone is asking you for help or seemingly trying to help you. But, again, you should feel free to hang up, and you can hang up politely, but you don't need to feel like you need to engage with a caller that you don't know who they are, or engage with someone by email and you don't know who they are. That's a way that you're protecting yourself and also protecting the community. So, again, doing your research, kind of empowering yourself to take these steps are going to go really far in making sure that you don't fall victim to these scams, and then sharing this information with your family members and friends as you are hearing it, and can make sure that they don't fall victim either. Sarah, I'll turn it to you.
Oh, so recognizing red flags, we're going to talk about money transfers. So I was a little late to the game myself, but there are now these cash transfer apps. And with COVID, we're doing less in-person interactions. So it's, people are using cash a lot less. There's cash exchanged, family and friends less. And that's partially because of less in person, but also cash transfer apps are very convenient ways to transfer money between yourself and individuals you know personally without having to exchange cash. So for example, you go out to lunch with someone and they throw it on a credit card, and you just use a cash transfer app like Venmo, Zelle, or Cash App to send to them your portion of the bill, right? No one's fumbling in their pocket trying to, get exact change. It can be very convenient. But scammers know this. So they're also using these apps to solicit money directly, and also via contests. So an example is one popular contest. The scammer will ask an individual to send $25. And, it can say, just send $25 just so you can enter this contest, or just so we know that you're real, and you're going to receive $250 back. And they just send these mass requests out to users of the app, to Venmo, to Cash App. This particular one was on Cash App. And so people think, oh, yeah, that's great. You're chatting with, it sounds like a legitimate person. I mean, this isn't over the phone. This is via Messenger, message and texting. And, you send the money, and then you never get the money back. And just like cash, once that money is gone, it's gone. It's very, very difficult. You're not going to really recoup that money back. So we've also seen this in romance scams. When I said at the outset of this that scammers are always one step ahead. So I've been working, on this for a while, and Sarah and I have worked together on scams for a long time, and I remember talking about green dot cards, and that was maybe 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago. And I don't know if anyone remembers green dot cards. You could go to a drugstore, and they were just essentially a way to transfer money quickly. All right, they were untraceable. You get the card, you load money on it, and then the money will be gone. And an incredibly high percentage of these were used for scams. So, people eventually stopped selling these green dot cards. I really don't hear of them anymore. And scammers started to use gift cards then. All right, go buy gift cards. They're still using gift cards. I had a woman call me the other week who part of the scam was to cash a check and then go buy eBay gift cards. So while gift cards are still a method that scammers are using, they're now moving on to these cash apps, right? Quick, untraceable ways to send money should send up a red flag. If someone's asking you to send money and it's an untraceable way, like cash, directly through the mail, see a lot of that, or these cash apps or gift cards, that's a pretty big red flag. So I know that it may be, at least a check. You can kind of follow a check, and someone has to cash it, and it's not without risk itself, but it's a little bit more traceable than just sending cash. You can go to the next slide. So again, do not send money or share your account information with anyone you don't know personally. Money is difficult, if not impossible to trace. You will not get it back. Worse, if a scammer gets your account information, because these cash apps are linked to your bank account, they can transfer your bank funds to themselves. So they can't even bypass you. So if they get your account information, for example, I use one of those apps and it's directly linked to my bank account. So if someone had my login information for that app, they'd have all the information. They'd have direct access to my bank account. So don't send money or share that account information with anyone you don't know personally. Frankly, I only send money to people I know personally, but I never share my information with somebody other than myself. You can go to the next slide. And then just really quickly, there are steps you can take. So because the threat of scams is so high due to COVID, it used to be that you got 3 free credit reports a year as a consumer, 1 from each major credit reporting agency, Experian, TransUnion, and Equifax. However, through April 2021, every consumer can get a free weekly credit report. So you can check your report every week. Go to annualcreditreport.com to request yours. This does not include your credit score, so you won't see your credit score, but what you will see is every account in your name. It's important to pay attention to addresses that are listed for you and phone numbers that are listed for you. And if an address or phone number is listed that you didn't live at or you don't recognize the phone number, it's a pretty good indication someone has access to your identity. So those are really important things to keep an eye on. And again, it's free. So it went from 3 times a year to now you could do it, I don't know how many weeks are until April 2021, but more than 3. You can shred financial documents before throwing them out. Use strong online passwords and don't give them out. And check your credit card statements and your bank statements. Being aware of what's going on, just being aware of your finances. And so if someone were to start trying to use your identity to take money, that you'd be on top of it sooner, is probably the best thing you could do. And the bottom line is the best defense, say no. And again, Sarah said you can do this politely, but these scammers, I want to preface this by saying that this is how they make their money. And while a lot of it is, oh, it's too good to be true, you've won, oh, it's so great, they also use tactics like, you've got an economic stimulus payment and you didn't pay taxes on it, and therefore there's a warrant out for your arrest from the IRS. They will use negative, and they'll try to invoke fear to get people to, react out of fear and give personal information or send money. You may be polite, but don't be afraid to say no, and don't be afraid to just hang up the phone. Sorry, Sarah, you go ahead.
Sarah, were you covering this or do you want me to go through it?
I can take, do you want to just do the scam tracker and the DOJ stuff?
Sure. So I'll let you though first maybe just reiterate the local resources.
Sure. So call the Center for Elder Law and Justice. If you have questions, again, we're here, and call our helpline, call us directly. the New York State Attorney General Consumer Fraud Hotline for Western New York. That's the local hotline. That's 853-8404, 716 area code. And again, for those listening, ours is 853-3087.
Great, thank you. So there's also a number of places, so Center for Elder Law and Justice and other local places can really help you sort of determine whether, you know, you're getting a solicitation that is a scam and maybe help you if you've fallen victim to one of these scams. It's also important that you report the scams on the national level. The reason for that is that the Department of Justice has put a lot of attention on trying to catch these scammers who are operating particularly on large scales. So the more people that are reporting what scams that they're experiencing, any information that they have about those scams, the more likely it is that on the federal level, they can track trends and catch these repeat bad actors. So this new National Elder Fraud Hotline, this was just debuted, I think, back in June, is a really great, easy sort of one number. If you're gonna, you know, think about one place to report a scam, I think you should consider this one. There's also, you know, AARP has a toll-free scam line. You can report scams to the Office of the Inspector General at the Social Security Administration if you've been victim or if you've received a scam that relates to Social Security. Similarly, for IRS impersonation scams and scams related to stimulus payments, you can report those to the Treasury Inspector General. But really, whenever you're reporting to one of these individual government agencies, it's all going to lead to one place. You know, they're trying very hard to kind of maintain a central database of information, again, to kind of stop some of these repeat offenders. So we wanted to take a moment just to show you the Better Business Bureau scam tracker. Again, being armed with information about individual scams is going to be incredibly helpful. So as you can see from the screenshots here, the scam tracker works by location. So you can narrow down to a number of locations. You know, there's a map here with all these little dots that show you where they have information. And also you can look at individual reports of scams that other people in your community have submitted. So I'm going to share my screen to show you very quickly what this actually looks like. So hopefully you can all see that. So if you go to this Better Business Bureau site, which is bbb.org/scam tracker, you can even just like click right into the map here if you want to, and it's going to bring up some details on different scams. You can sort by location, when things were reported. I'm trying to get us a little close to Buffalo here. But one thing that's really nice about this is you can actually click on individual scams and get more information. So, you know, for instance, this one was a credit card scam. They were saying they were from US Bank. This is where it happened. This is how much they lost, and details about what they were actually told. So again, thinking about how being armed with like real details can really help you sort of immediately identify a scam. If you have some time, it's a really great resource to sort of look through and spend some time taking a look at. And again, these scams are always changing. So I know, you may have attended one of these presentations in the past and have an idea of some of like the general scams, but there might be new ones that you need to keep track of. So another great resource, and again, thinking back to some of like the scams that you may be more familiar with, grandparent scams, romance scams, the sweepstakes scams. The Senate Committee on Aging has a really great Fighting Fraud book. The 2020 book is out right now. You can request a free printed copy by emailing that email address on your screen there. And it includes information about, the top 10 reported scams. There's resources by state, phone numbers. You can download it if you want an electronic copy or can print it yourself. So I really recommend this as a great resource. There's also a lot of resources coming out of individual federal agencies. So the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau has a lot of resources to help you avoid scams. You can see some of the topics on your screen here. I think that these booklets are really helpful. You can order these for your office, for your home, for your friends. These are free resources that you can access online. The FTC, the Federal Trade Commission, has really great information on both advice for consumers, but they also have a sort of tracker on their website that it has some pretty interesting graphs, lets you see what's really going on. And again, being armed with information is incredibly helpful. And I just want to note that you do have access to these slides, and so you can actually click through these links on the slides. I believe they're on the Erie County's website. And just wanted to quickly highlight, if you're listening and you're an advocate, there's some resources that could be really helpful for you. So let's say you're working in a nutrition center. The Consumer Financial Protection Bureau has these really great placemats. You can order them for free, and they provide information about different kinds of scams. Again, just kind of putting information out there for people to see and be able to sort of recognize some of the varieties of scams that are out there. Similarly, the Federal Trade Commission has handouts, recordings, multiple languages that you can order and utilize for free. So there's lots of information and resources out there. Finally, my own organization, Justice and Aging, we run a resource center called the National Center on Law and Elder Rights. We do 2 to 3 webinars a year that include written materials, practice tips, and we also provide one-on-one case consultations that professionals can request from us. So if you're an advocate and you're handling a case that's a little bit complicated and you could use some assistance, we do provide all of this for free as well. So if you want to learn more, you can go to our website at ncler.acl.gov. So I know, Christy, we're kind of at time, but are there any questions that came through that we should try to address?
No, just one just came through, but I'll address that. It was other slides on Erie County's website. And actually, after this was done recording, we are going to upload the slides on our website page, so you can access them there. Anything else from the Sarahs?
Not for me. Sarah, did you have anything else to add?
No, just thank you for listening. Again, we got some final contact information. I would just say, report, because as you can see, even if however you're contacted, the more reporting that goes on, the more that organizations can raise awareness. The FBI does look into these scams, especially if they have enough information. But without you reporting, the scammers can still target people. The only way we're going to take them down, though, is if you report. My direct extension is 225. Please feel free to reach out to me with any questions. And thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Christine. And thank you all for attending.
Thank you as well. Thank you, Sarah Galvan and Sarah Duval, for sharing the information today. I hope everyone who joined has learned a lot. Again, Sarah had mentioned that they do offer a legal helpline through the Center for Elder Law and Justice. However, with the summer series, they are also offering 20-minute consultations. They're one-on-one consultations with an attorney via phone. If you're interested in signing up for one of those, you can contact their office at 716-853-3087, extension 267. And also there will be a brief survey at the end of this that will pop up. You can fill it out. We appreciate it. And as always, I'm hoping you will join us again next Wednesday at noon for our next session. Our topic will be custody visitation and New York State Family Court in the time of COVID-19. Again, thank you, ladies.
Thank you.
Have a good day.
Bye.
Bye.